It was a quiet night at the Interstellar Command Center on Earth when the signal arrived. A young technician named Oliver Hayes noticed a strange pattern flashing on his console. At first, he thought it was a glitch, but then the translation system came alive, displaying symbols that shifted into words. The message came from deep space, from a region far beyond human exploration. Captain Ethan Ward was called to the command floor. He was a tall man in his 40s, calm and serious. He had seen many strange things during his service, but this was different. The message was not just noise or random data. It was structured, deliberate, and intelligent. Everyone in the room went silent as the translation became clear. "This is the Vorn Dominion," the message said. "You have entered our space. You are now subjects of the Galactic Council. Submit and serve or be destroyed." The room filled with whispers. It was humanity's first contact with alien life, and it was a threat. Captain Ward stared at the screen, reading the words again. He could feel the tension around him, the mix of fear and disbelief. For centuries, humans had looked up at the stars, dreaming of peaceful contact. Now that dream had turned into a nightmare. The message was immediately sent to the United Earth Assembly, where leaders from every nation gathered to decide what to do. The meeting was held in a large chamber in Geneva. The atmosphere was heavy. Everyone could feel the weight of history pressing down on them. Captain Ward stood before the assembly, explaining what little they knew. "The Vorn Dominion is powerful," he said. "Their technology is far ahead of ours. But we don't know how large their empire is or what their true intentions are. We should respond carefully." Some of the representatives wanted to send a message of peace. Others believed humanity should prepare for war. The debate grew heated, voices rising, fear mixing with pride. Finally, the assembly chairperson, an older woman named Laura Grant, spoke firmly. "Earth will not surrender. We will not bow to threats from any empire, no matter how far away." A vote was taken, and the decision was made. Humanity would stand its ground. Captain Ward returned to the command center. He looked out through the glass wall at the dark night sky, the stars shining faintly above the horizon. Somewhere out there, the Vorn Dominion was watching. He knew that a simple refusal might lead to war. Still, he felt pride in humanity's courage. The response message was short and clear. "This is Earth. We do not submit." For a week, there was silence. No reply came from the Vorn. Life went on, though uneasily. Scientists worked to study the signal's origin. Soldiers trained for what might come. The media called it the message from the stars. People across the planet argued and speculated. Was it real? Was humanity truly in danger? Then, a second message arrived. Came without warning, stronger than before. The voice was cold and sharp. "Your defiance has been noted. You have made a grave mistake. The Vorn Dominion does not tolerate rebellion. Prepare yourselves." At that moment, everyone in the command center froze. The signal cut off, leaving a heavy silence behind. Captain Ward turned to his officers. "Send word to all colonies," he ordered. "Activate defense protocols. Begin full fleet readiness." Within hours, every spaceport on Earth came alive. Ships were fueled, weapons systems checked, and crews called to duty. For the first time in history, humanity prepared for an interstellar war. In his quarters that night, Captain Ward sat alone, thinking about what was coming. He remembered old stories of human conflict, of how people had always fought to survive. He wondered if this was any different, or if the same spirit that had carried humanity through its darkest days would rise again. In the distance, Earth's orbital defense stations glowed like faint stars. They were symbols of hope, fragile but determined. Ward looked up and whispered, "Let's hope they know who they're dealing with." Millions of miles away, in a region of space unseen by human eyes, the Vorn Dominion prepared their fleets. They did not take the humans seriously. To them, Earth was just another primitive world to conquer. But they were wrong. The humans were not like the others the Vorn had crushed before. They were unpredictable, stubborn, and fierce. The galaxy would soon learn what Captain Ward already knew. Humanity might be young among the stars, but it had the heart of a predator. As the first Vorn ships moved toward human space, a silent storm began to rise across the stars. The warning had been ignored, and now the galaxy was about to find out what happens when you threaten Earth. The first attack came without warning. It was early morning on the mining colony of Titanus 4, a distant world orbiting a cold red star. The colony was quiet, its workers just beginning their shifts, when the sky turned white. A sudden burst of energy ripped through the thin atmosphere as Vorn warships appeared out of the void. The aliens had come to make good on their threat. Lieutenant Claire Morgan, commander of the colony's small defense unit, ran to the control tower as alarms echoed through the settlement. She had served in the interstellar fleet for 6 years but had never seen real combat. Her team was made up of miners, engineers, and a few trained soldiers. They were brave, but their weapons were old, and their defenses were thin. From the tower, she could see the alien ships descending like dark blades against the red sky. They were enormous, black and silver, their surfaces shifting like liquid metal. They moved with a calm, terrible grace, confident in their power. The colony's defense cannons opened fire, bright lines of plasma streaking upward, but the shots did little damage. "Get the civilians to the shelters," Claire shouted. "We need time to evacuate the command corps." Her second-in-command, Sergeant Nathan Cole, nodded and ran to organize the evacuation. The air trembled as an explosion shook the ground, and one of the colony's main power stations went up in flames. The Vorn were firing precision strikes, disabling the colony piece by piece. In orbit, a small human patrol ship named the Horizon Scout tried to defend the colony. It was no match for the alien destroyers. Within minutes, the ship was crippled, its hull torn open. But before it fell, it sent a distress signal back to Earth. Down below, Claire and her team set up a last line of defense around the command center. They knew they could not win, but they refused to surrender. When the first wave of Vorn troops landed, the humans opened fire. The aliens were tall, armored in black plates, their eyes glowing blue. Their weapons fired searing bolts of light that cut through walls and metal alike. The battle was chaos. The ground burned. The air was filled with smoke and screams. Yet somehow the humans held their ground longer than anyone expected. Claire moved from cover to cover, firing at anything that moved. Her heart pounded, but her hands were steady. She had no time for fear. "Lieutenant," Cole's voice came through the radio. "They've breached the north wall. Fall back to the core," she ordered. "We can't let them reach the data systems." As the team retreated, one of the engineers, a young man named Eric, stopped and aimed a plasma rifle at a damaged Vorn transport. "Lieutenant, I have an idea," he said, breathing hard. "We can overload the mining reactors. If we trigger them manually, the explosion might take out their landing craft." Claire hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Do it. You have 90 seconds. Then get out of there." Eric sprinted toward the reactors while the others covered him. The Vorn advanced through the smoke, confident in their victory. But then the ground beneath them began to rumble. A blinding flash erupted as the mining reactors overloaded, and a wave of fire swept across the landing zone. The explosion tore through the alien ranks, destroying several ships and forcing the rest to retreat. Claire's team barely made it into the underground tunnels as debris rained from the sky. The shockwave knocked her to the ground, her ears ringing. When she looked up, the surface was burning. Titanus 4 was lost, but they had made the Vorn bleed. Hours later, the surviving colonists gathered in the dark tunnels. Claire stood among them, her uniform scorched, her voice hoarse. "We sent them a message today," she said quietly. "They thought we'd surrender. They were wrong." The distress signal reached Earth 2 days later. The footage of the burning colony and the destroyed alien ships spread across the planet. People watched in silence, then in anger. News channels called it the Titanus 4 massacre. The United Earth Assembly declared a state of war. Across every city, factories began working day and night. Shipyards filled with workers building new warships. The interstellar fleet recalled every officer and pilot. Humanity was no longer just defending itself, it was preparing to strike back. In orbit, Captain Ethan Ward received the report. He watched the recording of Lieutenant Claire Morgan's stand and felt a mix of pride and sorrow. "They thought we'd break," he said softly. "Now they'll learn what humans do when cornered." Far beyond human space, in the cold halls of a Vorn command ship, a general studied the same footage. He was silent for a long time before turning to his officers. "They are not what we expected," he said. "They fight like predators. We must crush them quickly, before they spread." But it was already too late. The humans had tasted blood. The war for the galaxy had begun. The news of the attack on Titanus spread across the solar system like wildfire. For the first time in human history, the people of Earth, Mars, and the colonies united under a single purpose: survival. The images of burning cities and alien ships hovering above the ruined colony filled every screen. Fear quickly turned into anger, and anger turned into determination. The era of hesitation was over. Captain Ethan Ward stood inside the main command hall of the Interstellar Fleet headquarters. All around him, officers, engineers, and soldiers rushed to their stations. The once quiet facility now pulsed with energy. War had come to humanity, and there was no turning back. "Status report," Ward said firmly, his eyes fixed on the large holographic display showing the outer defense line. "Shipyards on Luna and Mars are working non-stop," replied Commander Julia Price, one of Ward's senior officers. "The first wave of new cruisers will be ready within 2 weeks. Civilian industries are being converted for military production. We're also drafting volunteers from every colony." Ward nodded. "Good. What about the colonies near the frontier?" "Most have begun evacuation. Titanus, 5 and Europa Station are reinforcing their shields, but they won't last if the Vorn strike again." Ward folded his arms, deep in thought. He knew the Vorn wouldn't stop with Titanus 4. The aliens would keep pushing, testing humanity's defenses until there was nothing left. That couldn't happen. Not again. Across the globe, leaders of the United Earth Assembly broadcast a message to every citizen. The chairperson, Laura Grant, stood before the camera with a solemn expression. The attack on Titanus 4 was not just an assault on one colony, it was an assault on all of humanity. From this moment on, we stand together as one species, one force. We will not bow. We will fight. The speech echoed across the planet, reaching the hearts of billions. Factories turned into weapons plants. Cargo ships were converted into armored transports. Young men and women lined up at recruitment centers, their faces set with resolve. The words "never again" became humanity's new rallying cry. On Mars, engineers worked tirelessly inside the vast domed shipyards. Sparks flew as massive warships took shape, new designs built from human ingenuity and fragments of captured Vorn technology. Scientists studied alien wreckage recovered from Titanus 4, learning how to replicate their shields and energy weapons. Humanity was adapting faster than anyone expected. Lieutenant Claire Morgan, still recovering from the battle on Titanus 4, arrived at the Mars Command Center. Her arm was in a sling, but her eyes burned with determination. When she stepped into the briefing room, everyone turned to look. Her stand at Titanus 4 had made her a symbol of defiance. Captain Ward greeted her with a nod. "Good to see you on your feet, Lieutenant." "Thank you, sir," she replied. "I just wish I'd done more." "You did enough," Ward said. "You gave us time to fight back. That's more than anyone could have asked for." They turned their attention to the tactical display. The Vorn fleet was moving slowly but steadily toward human space. Ward pointed at the screen. "Their next move will be here," he said, indicating the Mars-Earth defense line. "They'll test us again. And this time we'll be ready." Back on Earth, cities transformed overnight. In the skies above, massive troop transports lifted off, carrying soldiers and supplies to orbital bases. In underground bunkers, scientists developed new weapons, combining human creativity with alien engineering. Every nation contributed something: ships, troops, resources. The walls between them disappeared. Commander Price watched the growing fleet from an observation deck. "I never thought I'd see the day humanity truly stood as one," she said softly. Ward joined her, his gaze steady. "The Vorn gave us something they didn't mean to," he said. "They gave us unity." Days turned into weeks. The first of the new warships launched into space. They were larger, faster, and deadlier than anything humanity had built before. Each one carried a name meant to inspire: defiance, valor, freedom, endurance. The fleet's ranks swelled with veterans and new recruits alike. When the interstellar fleet assembled in low Earth orbit for the first time, millions watched the broadcast. The view was breathtaking. Hundreds of ships lined up against the curve of the blue planet, their hulls gleaming in sunlight. It was a sight that filled people with both pride and hope. Captain Ward stood on the bridge of the command ship Horizon. Around him, his crew prepared for the first major counterstrike. "All ships report ready," said the comm officer. Ward looked out at the stars and took a deep breath. "Then let's show them what humanity is made of." The engines roared to life, and one by one, the ships broke formation and jumped into deep space. The time for waiting was over. Humanity had answered the call to arms. Far away, in the dark chambers of the Vorn Dominion, their leaders watched the humans' rapid mobilization with growing unease. They had expected fear and surrender. Instead, they saw something they had not seen in centuries: defiance. And in that moment, the galaxy began to understand. The humans were not prey. They were the storm. The first great battle between humanity and the Vorn Dominion took place near Mars. The red planet hung silent and watchful as the two fleets met in orbit. The Vorn believed they would crush the humans easily. Their ships were larger, their weapons older but proven over centuries of conquest. They expected another simple victory. They did not understand what kind of enemy they were facing. Captain Ethan Ward stood on the bridge of the human flagship, the Horizon. Around him, his officers worked quickly, their faces calm but tense. Every screen and console flickered with data. Dozens of human ships formed a defensive wall around Mars, their engines glowing bright against the dark of space. "Enemy fleet entering range," said Commander Julia Price. "Reading 15 capital ships, 30 escorts, and a carrier. They're moving fast." Ward nodded slowly. "They'll go for our center. They always do." He turned to his helmsman. "Hold position until I give the order. Let them come to us." On the other side of the void, the Vorn fleet moved with deadly precision. Their commander, a tall, insect-like being named Varric, viewed the humans as little more than primitive animals. He ordered his ships to advance and fire all weapons. Blue energy beams streaked across the distance, slamming into human shields. The void erupted in flashes of light. "Shields holding," Price reported, though the deck trembled beneath their feet. "Outer line reporting damage but maintaining formation." Ward smiled faintly. "Good. Now we show them how humans fight." He gave the order, and the human fleet moved in a way the Vorn had never seen before. Instead of holding a fixed line, the ships broke formation, scattering and weaving through the enemy fire. The Vorn commanders struggled to predict their movements. Human pilots flew with reckless precision, using asteroids and debris as cover, diving and rolling through enemy lines. Small destroyers darted close, firing torpedoes at weak points in the enemy hulls. The Vorn tried to adapt, but the humans kept changing tactics faster than they could respond. It was chaos, brilliant, deadly chaos, and the Vorn had no idea how to counter it. On the bridge of the Horizon, Ward watched the battle unfold with calm focus. "Signal the Endurance to flank their carrier. Tell the Valor to feint left and then strike their engines." Orders flew across the network, and the human fleet moved like a single living thing. When the Vorn carrier turned to fire, its engines exploded in a chain reaction. A bright sphere of light filled the dark, and debris scattered across space. Commander Price stared in disbelief. "We got them. The carrier's down." Ward nodded once, his voice steady. "Now push forward. Every ship, fire everything you have." The second phase of the battle became a full assault. Human cruisers and fighters swarmed the Vorn ships, hammering them from all directions. The aliens tried to retreat, but the humans cut off their escape. One by one, the massive Vorn warships began to fall. On Mars, People watched the battle through live feeds, holding their breath as the explosions lit the sky. When the last Vorn ship broke apart and vanished in fire, cheers erupted across the colonies. For the first time, humanity had not just survived, they had won. Lieutenant Claire Morgan, now commanding her own strike team, led the final assault on a crippled Vorn destroyer. She and her crew boarded the ship through a breach in its hull, capturing its command core before it could self-destruct. The mission gave Earth its first intact Vorn databank, a priceless source of intelligence. When the battle finally ended, silence fell over the fleet. The stars glittered coldly outside the viewport, and the wreckage of both human and alien ships drifted quietly in the void. Ward looked out at the remains of the Vorn armada and exhaled slowly. "They underestimated us," he said. "They thought we were prey. Now they know better." Messages of victory spread through every channel. Across Earth, Mars, and the colonies, people celebrated. Factories redoubled their efforts. Recruitment soared. Humanity's morale rose higher than ever before. But even as the cheers echoed, Ward knew the war was far from over. The Vorn would return stronger and angrier. The victory at Mars had not ended the conflict. It had only changed its course. In the cold darkness beyond the solar system, the surviving Vorn ships limped home. Commander Varric watched the recordings of the battle, his expression unreadable. He could not understand how these humans, these newcomers, had managed to outthink his fleet. He turned to his aides. "Prepare the High Command," he said bitterly. "We have awakened something dangerous." Back on Earth, Ward received a transmission from the United Earth Assembly. Laura Grant appeared on the screen, her face lit with both pride and gravity. "Captain Ward," she said, "today you showed the galaxy what humanity is capable of. This victory will be remembered for generations. But the war is only beginning. Be ready for what comes next." Ward nodded. "We will be ready, ma'am." As he turned back to the stars, the faint light of Mars reflected in his eyes. For the first time in 1,000 years, the galaxy had witnessed something new, a species that refused to kneel. The Vorn had expected easy prey. Instead, they had met the galaxy's next apex predator. The victory at Mars sent shockwaves across the galaxy. For the first time in centuries, the Vorn Dominion had been defeated in open battle. Their fleets had been shattered by a species they had barely known existed a few months ago. The news spread fast through the trade routes and shadow networks of alien space. The name of the new species was whispered in fear and curiosity. Humans. On distant worlds, alien leaders called emergency meetings. The Council of Turin debated whether to ally with the humans or to stay silent. The merchant guilds of the Soren cluster began rerouting their fleets, avoiding human space entirely. Even the proud warrior clans of the KRYTH watched the humans with growing unease. The galaxy had seen empires rise and fall, but never one so unpredictable, so fierce, and so fast to adapt. Meanwhile, on Earth, the world was alive with celebration. Crowds filled the streets of every major city, waving banners and watching the broadcasts replay the victory at Mars. For the first time in generations, there was no division of nations, only unity. Humanity had become one force under a single banner. In the Interstellar Fleet headquarters, Captain Ethan Ward and his officers gathered around a new holographic map of the galaxy. Red markers showed Vorn territory, vast and ancient. Blue markers, smaller but growing, represented human-controlled systems. Commander Julia Price studied the display. "They've pulled their fleets back to the edge of their core worlds. They're scared." Ward nodded. "They should be. They thought we'd break after one battle. Instead, we're getting stronger." Lieutenant Claire Morgan stood nearby, still wearing the marks of battle. "Sir, the Vorn aren't used to losing. If they're retreating, it's not out of fear. They're planning something." Ward turned to her. "Then we'll be ready for it." Across the colonies, the war effort accelerated. Mars became the heart of ship production, while Earth focused on research and command. New ships rolled out of the docks weekly, each one more advanced than the last. Engineers combined alien technology with human designs, creating hybrid weapons and adaptive shields that no enemy had seen before. But beyond the celebrations, Whispers began to spread among the alien races. The humans were not seen as heroes, they were seen as monsters. On the world of Doric, a frightened trader told stories of human soldiers who fought until the last breath, who refused to surrender even when surrounded. On the icy moons of Varnes, refugees claimed that humans smiled as they charged into battle. The stories grew darker with each retelling. Humans are predators, one alien lord declared. They fight not to survive, but to win. They enjoy the hunt. Back on Earth, Captain Ward received an intercepted transmission from deep within Vorn space. It was a recording of a Vorn general speaking before the Dominion's council. "They are relentless," the general said. "They learn, they adapt, they never stop. We underestimated them. If we do not destroy them now, they will become the greatest threat the galaxy has ever seen." Ward listened in silence. When the message ended, he turned to Price. "He's right about one thing," he said. "We don't stop." The United Earth Assembly released a new declaration that same day. It stated that humanity would not seek conquest but would defend itself against all threats. It was meant to calm the galaxy's fears. But the aliens who read it only saw a promise, a quiet warning wrapped in diplomacy. In the months that followed, Vorn scouts continued to vanish near the border. Their patrols reported strange signals, ghost fleets appearing and disappearing in the dark. The humans were testing new cloaking systems, new weapons, and new tactics. Every battle left the Vorn with fewer ships and more questions. The fear spread faster than the truth. Some alien worlds began strengthening their defenses, not against the Vorn, but against the humans. Trade routes closed, and alliances shifted. The balance of power that had ruled the galaxy for centuries began to crack. On the bridge of the horizon, Ward looked out at the stars. "They think we're dangerous," he said softly. Claire Morgan stood beside him. "Aren't we?" Ward smiled faintly. "Only when we have to be." Far away, in the dark halls of the Vorn High Command, Supreme Leader Varek slammed a clawed fist onto the table. "They defy us," he hissed. "They humiliate us. And now they spread fear through every world we control. I will not allow it." One of his advisors stepped forward nervously. "What shall we do, my lord?" Varek's eyes glowed cold blue. "We will remind the galaxy who rules it. Prepare the Dominion's full fleet. If the humans want a war, then we will give them one." As the Vorn fleets began to gather, humanity's ships spread across the stars, silent and ready. The galaxy held its breath. The predators of Earth had awakened, and nothing would ever be the same again. The silence after Mars did not last long. Within months, the Vorn Dominion struck back. Their fleets appeared in every sector of human-controlled space, moving faster and hitting harder than ever before. They targeted colonies, supply routes, and shipyards. The Vorn were furious, and their retaliation was meant to burn humanity's growing strength to ashes. The first attack came at Titan Station, one of Earth's largest outposts near Saturn. Without warning, the sky turned red as Vorn ships descended in formation. The colony's defense grid lit up the dark, but the Vorn firepower was overwhelming. Within minutes, shields began to fail. Thousands of civilians ran for the bunkers as explosions tore through the outer rings. On board the flagship Horizon, Captain Ethan Ward watched the distress signals appear on the tactical map. His jaw tightened. "Set course for Titan," he ordered. "We're not letting them take it." The Horizon jumped through slipspace, followed by a fleet of human warships. When they emerged, the void around Titan was filled with wreckage and fire. Ward's fleet didn't hesitate. They went straight into the fight. "Target the lead destroyer," shouted Commander Julia Price. "All ships, concentrate fire." Energy beams and railgun rounds streaked across the stars. The human fleet hit hard, cutting through the Vorn's formation with brutal precision. Smaller frigates weaved between enemy cruisers, firing torpedoes into their engines. The Vorn fought back with savage force, but the humans no longer fought like beginners, they fought like veterans. Lieutenant Claire Morgan led a squadron of fighter craft through the chaos. Her voice came over the comms, calm and steady. "Targeting their bombers. We'll clear a path for the Horizon." Her fighters danced between debris fields, taking out enemy squadrons one by one. The battle raged for hours, and when the smoke cleared, Titan still stood, but barely. The colony was damaged, hundreds were lost, and the cost of victory weighed heavy on every survivor. After the battle, Ward walked through the medical bay watching the injured being treated. The air smelled of burnt metal and disinfectant. Commander Price joined him quietly. "They'll hit us again," she said. "I know," Ward replied. "And next time it'll be worse." Across the galaxy, the Vorn unleashed a wave of terror. Dozens of human outposts were destroyed. Entire convoys vanished in deep space. The Dominion wanted to show that resistance was hopeless. But their attacks had the opposite effect. On Earth, the United Assembly declared full-scale mobilization. Every shipyard worked around the clock. Every pilot, engineer, and soldier trained for war. The people who once celebrated peace now built weapons. The fire that burned in them after Mars only grew stronger. Admiral Laura Grant addressed the fleet through a galaxy-wide transmission. Her voice was firm and clear. "The Vorn think they can frighten us. They think they can crush our spirit. But they have forgotten who we are. Humanity does not yield. We adapt, we endure, and we fight. For every world they burn, we will rebuild too. For every life they take, we will take back 1,000. This is not their war anymore. It's ours." The speech echoed through the colonies, igniting a storm of determination. Soldiers painted their ships with symbols of their homeworlds. Engineers carved the names of the fallen into the hulls of new cruisers. The fleet grew larger, stronger, more united. Meanwhile, deep in Vorn territory, Supreme Leader Varek watched the reports of his victories and frowned. For all their destruction, the humans did not retreat. Their colonies rebuilt faster than expected. Their fleets returned with new designs. Each time the Vorn adapted, the humans adapted faster. "They're learning from us," Varek growled. "They're becoming us." One of his generals bowed low. "Shall we prepare the Dominion's dreadnoughts, my lord?" Varek nodded slowly. "Yes, if they want total war, then they will see what total war means." Back on Earth, Ward stood in the command center of the horizon. The stars ahead shimmered with light from countless distant worlds. He knew the next battles would be bloodier, that victory would come at a cost they could barely imagine. But he also knew something else: the humans would not stop. "Send the message to all fleets," Ward said. "The Vorn want war. We'll give them one." Outside the viewport, the fleet engines flared to life. Dozens of ships lined up behind the horizon, ready for another fight. The darkness of space seemed to pulse with quiet tension, as if the galaxy itself was holding its breath. Humanity had survived the first blow. Now it was their turn to strike back. The Vorn Dominion's attacks had pushed humanity to the edge, but not over it. Instead of breaking, humans became sharper, faster, and more dangerous than ever before. The fleets that had once fought for survival were now preparing for a counterattack. The hunters were about to become the hunted. Months of preparation turned into motion. Massive shipyards around Earth and Mars blazed with light as new warships launched into space. Human engineers had learned from every battle, integrating stolen Vorn technology into their designs. The new generation of ships, sleeker, stronger, and deadlier, was unlike anything the galaxy had seen. Captain Ethan Ward stood on the bridge of the horizon, overseeing the final readiness checks. The ship hummed with power. All around him, officers worked with focused calm. Commander Julia Price approached him. "All fleets report ready. We have 200 ships spread across 4 task forces." Ward nodded. "And the Vorn's border defenses?" "Minimal," she said. "They pulled most of their forces deeper into their core systems after Titan. They're expecting us to defend, not attack." A small smile crossed Ward's face. "Then we'll give them a surprise." The operation was simple in plan but massive in scale. Human fleets would strike at 3 key Vorn supply routes, crippling their logistics. The horizon would lead the main assault against the fortress world of Kator, the heart of the Vorn's outer defenses. As the fleet jumped into slipspace, silence filled the bridge. Every soul aboard knew what this mission meant. If they failed, humanity might never recover. But if they succeeded, the galaxy would never forget. When the fleet emerged, Kator filled the view. A dark, heavily armed world surrounded by layers of defense platforms and warships. The Vorn were ready, but they didn't expect the humans to come straight for them. "Open fire," Ward commanded. The first human salvo lit up the darkness. Torpedoes and energy beams struck the outer platforms, tearing them apart. The Vorn fleet scrambled to respond, but the humans were already weaving between their lines, striking from every direction. Lieutenant Claire Morgan led her strike wing into the thick of battle. "Stay tight," she called over comms. "Hit their engines first, then their guns." Her squadron swooped through the chaos, disabling ship after ship. Human fighters moved like a storm, coordinated, relentless, and impossible to stop. The horizon pressed forward, its railguns hammering the Vorn flagship. "Direct hit on their command core," Price shouted. "They're losing control." Ward didn't hesitate. "Finish it." The Vorn flagship exploded in a burst of blue fire, debris scattering across the void. The shockwave rolled through the enemy lines, breaking their formation. Within minutes, Kator's defense fleet was shattered. But the humans weren't done. Ground forces descended onto the planet's surface, storming through the alien fortresses. The Vorn soldiers fought fiercely, but the humans were faster, using captured weapons and armored exosuits adapted from Vorn tech. Claire Morgan's voice came through the radio. "Sector 3 secure. We've taken their command center." Ward's eyes hardened. "Good work. Transmit the surrender signal." Minutes later, the Vorn fortress went silent. Human troops raised the United Earth flag over the alien stronghold, the first time in galactic history that the Vorn Dominion had lost a core world. When the news reached Earth, the response was thunderous. Cities erupted in cheers. For the first time, the galaxy realized the truth. Humanity was not just defending, it was winning. But the victory came at a cost. Thousands of soldiers had fallen, and the fleet had taken heavy damage. In the quiet after the battle, Ward walked through the observation deck, staring out at the burning world below. Commander Price joined him. "We did it," she said softly. Ward nodded. "We did. But they'll come back harder. This isn't the end. It's just the beginning of something bigger." He turned toward the stars, his expression calm but resolute. "Send the message to all fleets. Humanity stands undefeated." Across the galaxy, alien species watched in silence. The humans had done the impossible. They had taken the fight into the heart of an empire. And now, every world in the Dominion trembled with the same question. If humanity could defeat the Vorn, what would they do next? In the shadowed chambers of the Vorn High Command, Supreme Leader Varex's claws dug into the metal table. His empire was bleeding, and his enemies were multiplying. "They think they can conquer us," he hissed. "They think they are unstoppable." He turned to his generals. "Then let them face the storm. Prepare the final weapon. We end humanity here." Back on the horizon, Ward received the intelligence report about the Vorn's secret project. Whatever it was, it could change everything. He looked at the stars and said quietly, "Then it's time we finish what they started." The war had reached its breaking point. The Vorn Dominion, once the unchallenged ruler of the galaxy, was collapsing under the relentless assault of humanity. World after world had fallen to human fleets, and the Vorn were running out of time. But in their desperation, they had created something new, a weapon powerful enough to destroy entire star systems. They called it the Annihilator. From deep within Vorn space, Supreme Leader Varek gave his final order. "Deploy the Annihilator. Let the humans learn the meaning of fear." The weapon was massive, built into an artificial moon surrounded by shields and defense fleets. It could rip the heart out of a solar system with a single blast. The humans had no choice but to strike first. Captain Ethan Ward stood on the bridge of the horizon, staring at the tactical map. The Annihilator's position glowed in red, far beyond friendly lines. It was a suicide mission, but one they had to take. Commander Julia Price looked at him quietly. "If that thing fires, Earth won't survive." Ward nodded. "Then we stop it here, whatever it takes." The United Earth Fleet assembled, the largest armada humanity had ever launched. Hundreds of ships formed up around the horizon, engines burning bright. Every man and woman aboard knew the stakes. If they failed, the war and humanity would end. The fleet jumped into Vorn territory. When they emerged, they were met with a storm of fire. The Vorn defense line was waiting, vast and unbroken. The void filled with explosions as both sides clashed in the most violent battle the galaxy had ever seen. Shields failing on forward decks, Price shouted over the roar of alarms. "Divert power from engines," Ward ordered. "Keep firing." The horizon rocked under the impact of enemy fire. Whole ships vanished in bursts of light, human and Vorn alike. Through the chaos, Ward's voice remained steady. "Push forward. We get through or we die trying." Fighter wings led by Lieutenant Claire Morgan darted between the massive cruisers, hitting weak points and taking down shield generators. "We've got an opening," she called. "The Annihilator's defenses are down for now." Ward seized the moment. "All ships, concentrate fire on that moon. Everything we've got." Dozens of human warships unleashed their weapons at once. Beams, torpedoes, and railgun rounds hammered the Annihilator's surface. Cracks spread across its hull as explosions tore through its outer layers. But the weapon began to charge. A red glow spread across its core as energy built to a deadly crescendo. "They're going to fire," Price yelled. Ward looked around the bridge. His crew waited for his command, no fear, no hesitation. "Then we go all in," he said softly. "For Earth. For everyone." The horizon surged ahead, engines burning at maximum. It pierced through the enemy line, shields collapsing, hull tearing apart. The ship's main cannon charged for one final shot. "Fire!" Ward shouted. The horizon's last beam struck the Annihilator's core dead center. For a heartbeat, everything went silent. Then light filled the void. The Annihilator detonated, its own energy tearing it apart from within. The shockwave consumed the battlefield, wiping out what remained of both fleets. When the light faded, only debris and silence remained. The horizon drifted, engines dead, its hull broken. Inside, the surviving crew gathered what strength they had left. Commander Price opened her eyes amid the smoke and flickering lights. "Ward, we did it." Ward leaned against the shattered console, his uniform burned and torn. "Yeah," he said, smiling faintly. "We did." Far away on Earth, the skies filled with transmissions. The Annihilator was gone. The Vorn Dominion had fallen. Humanity had survived. Admiral Laura Grant's voice trembled with pride as she addressed the world. "The war is over. Humanity stands free. We faced the darkness and became something greater than any of us imagined. We are no longer prey, we are the apex." Across the galaxy, alien worlds watched in silence. The empire that had ruled them all was gone. In its place stood a new power, one that had risen from a single small world, defiant and unbroken. On the remains of the horizon, Ward gazed out at the distant stars. The war had cost everything, but he knew what it meant. Humanity had proven what it truly was. He whispered quietly, "They thought we were weak. They thought we would kneel. But we showed them what it means to be human." The stars burned brighter, as if the galaxy itself had changed forever. The humans had not just survived. They had become the galaxy's apex predator.